You are listening to Tarotmance, a show that delves into various topics concerning tarot, such as the art, the artists, interviews with fellow readers and intuitives, deck reviews, as well as guidance and reflections on the times we live in through the lens of sacred symbolism. My name is Arvia, a graphic artist and tarot reader that can be found at tarotmance.com. And for the duration of this podcast, I am also your host. Whenever and wherever you happen to be listening, welcome. So, it's been a while, and a lot has changed since I spoke with you last. I'm in a new location with some new gear, with new things to say, which fortunately is the goal. I'm going to be starting off today with a bit of tarot news and then get into our main topic, which primarily deals with themes of change and transformation. I'll be talking about the card representing this year, 2024, the Strength card, as well as reflecting on past energies and peering briefly into the future. Hopefully, you'll be able to gain some insight into what these energies mean and how you should process what is going on internally and with the world around you. And last but not least, I will be reviewing one of my favorite decks, and I enjoy working with it because it is very unique, and it also ties in well with today's topic. So without further delay, let's start off with some tarot news. In the last episode, I mentioned Rachel Pollack, an influential creator in the tarot space, was, at the time, in hospice. About a month after that, in April of 2023, she passed away. She was best known for writing Doom Patrol for DC Comics, many popular books on tarot and spirituality, and was a renowned tarot artist and author. So, R.I.P. Rachel Pollack. Next, I'd like to talk about a tarot deck set to be released this fall, and that is Christina Ricci's passion project, Cat Full of Spiders. For those who don't know, Christina Ricci is an actress who was really big in the 90s. She was famous for playing Wednesday Addams in The Addams Family and Addams Family Values. She was also in Casper and Sleepy Hollow, and a ton of other popular movies from that era. She has very recognizable features, big eyes, and kind of that macabre Tim Burton aesthetic. And I'm mentioning her appearance because a significant amount of art in her deck features her face. Possibly every card. I haven't seen the entire deck yet, but from what I have seen, it looks really cool. When it comes to the borders of the cards and how the artwork is framed, there's definitely an Art Deco influence. The cover art for the box, I would say, is done in more of an Art Nouveau style. And it shows this somewhat haunting illustration of her face that reminds me of the spirit in the mirror in Snow White, that the evil queen uses to ensure that she is indeed the fairest in the land. Until she's not. You know how that goes. But it looks really good. For what I have seen so far on the Cat Full of Spiders Instagram, and for the artist, the Instagram for the artist Felipe Flores, who did a wonderful job. My favorite cards so far are the Hermit and the Lovers. And speaking of the artist, Felipe Flores is an illustrator from Long Beach, California, a cartoonist for OC Weekly, and apparently has his own tarot deck called Zero, or Zero. It's basically zero spelled with an X. And this is information I got from his bio. I'm not sure if that deck is currently available for purchase anywhere. I did see some really cool tarot artwork on his Instagram. If you'd like to check it out, his handle is Felipe Flores Comics. And this project also involves Christina Ricci's husband, hairstylist Mark Hampton, and a tarot consultant named Minerva Siegel. The publisher for this deck is Insight Editions, and its release date is September 24th. So now for the main topic, I want to talk about the tarot card of the year, similar to the last episode, which was also my first, though much has changed. This year's card is Strength, which is represented by the number 8. And for those of you who don't know, all you have to do is add up the numbers of any particular year until you get one number. That number corresponds to particular cards within the major arcana of modern tarot decks. However, first I want to revisit last year's card, the Chariot. Last year, 2023, we dealt with themes regarding aligning the head and heart in order to move forward. Unlike this year's card, Strength, which deals mainly with inner strength, the Chariot is about outer strength, overcoming obstacles and applying one's will in order to accomplish a set goal and move forward. One thing to remember, though, as I mentioned in the last episode, is this energy comes with catalysts for change. Last year was a time where there were likely many things that changed for you, whether you wanted them to or not. This is a continuation of the energies from the previous year, 2022, which was represented by the Lover's card, a card of choice, and represented by the number 6. In 2022, it was likely that you made some significant choice in your life, whether that choice required you to do something completely different or burrow deeper into the status quo. You had a window of opportunity to make a major choice or many choices. As mentioned in the last episode, I also talked about the shadow side of this energy, which is the Devil card, also represented by the number 6. When our choices are not in alignment with our higher selves, we develop attachments, codependency, delve deeper into bad habits and addictions that we know do not serve our highest good. We have made choices that block our ascension in order to cling to sameness, familiarity, temptation, greed, or other addictions. Unlike in last year's episode, I didn't mention the Chariot's shadow card, the Tower. What happens when we try to move forward without our head and heart aligned, or our horses, or in this case, sphinxes, since the Chariot card in the Rider-Waite Smith deck includes 2 sphinxes, one black and one white, pulling the chariot? What happens when they're not pulling us in the same direction? Everything falls apart. The Chariot is a card that's just as much about ego as it is about the internal alignment required for positive forward movement. Like the Lovers and Strength card, the Chariot is a card that deals with the harmonizing of opposites. It's about bringing the conscious and subconscious self into alignment. Remember, the strength needed to power your Chariot comes from the divine. The Chariot is also the last card of the first line of the major arcana. For those who don't know, the major arcana is also referred to as the Fool's Journey. The journey represents the development of the self. The 22 cards of the major arcana are broken into divisions of 7, with the exclusion of the Fool card. The initial part of the journey represents the inner self. The second, the outer self, and how one deals with the collective. And the third, the integration of both, or the cosmic or superconscious. From this demarcation of trump cards or major arcana, we can see that the Chariot is the last card of the first section or line. So for the past few years, we have found ourselves in circumstances where we had to make some type of decision that involves a lot of internal reflection and really thinking about what we truly need based on what our soul craves versus superficial desires or meeting the needs of everyone but ourselves. So if you are making the right decisions and going in the right direction for you, whatever that is for you, then you probably have not experienced much resistance to this energy. In 2022, when you were in the year of the Lovers and found yourself having to make some important choice or choices, there was a feeling of alignment or integration. There was no lingering, nagging voice in the back of your mind telling you, I don't know about this. You weren't digging yourself deeper into a life of attachments, addictions, codependency, all of the energies that will flip that lover's energy, devolving it into the devil. And last year in 2023, when you took both of your horses leading your chariot and you were moving forward and truly deciding to commit to whatever you were doing, there was a sense of alignment and no problem moving forward. Because if you were not in alignment, you would have hit a big tower last year. Maybe not at the start of the year, maybe even not by mid-year, but by the end of the year, you would have had some type of tower moment because the shadow energy to the chariot is the tower. And when we're trying to move forward and the complementary forces powering our vehicle are not going in the same direction, we're going to crash. And that goes hand in hand with another energetic aspect of the chariot year, which are catalysts for change, as I've mentioned already. And that's for good or bad. So if you're in alignment with the higher aspects of this energy, the little course corrections that you may need to make along the way of your journey will not trip you up too much. However, if you are in the lower aspect of this energy, not in alignment, then you will crash. And there you have your tower moment, which is really a gift from the universe. And there are normally warnings, really. It starts off saying, the universe starts off saying, no, stop, this isn't working. Don't go this way. No, you're not listening. No. Okay, now we're going to make it impossible. We're going to make it impossible for you now. Now we're stepping in. So now we're getting into this year, the strength year again, represented by the number 8, a number representing karma and balance. It's also the first card of the second line or section within the Fool's Journey, representing the outer self, or how we interact with the world around us. In the classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the Strength card includes a depiction of a woman gently holding the head of a lion. The woman has a similar appearance to the Empress, who appears earlier in the Fool's Journey. There is an infinity symbol floating above her head, like the one above the head of the Magician on the Magician's card. The landscape appears green and lush, but it pales in comparison to the large yellow sky that overtakes the background. In the distance, there is a blue mountain peak which represents enlightenment and reaching new heights. Like the Lovers, the Chariot, and the Pillars in the High Priestess card, the woman with the lion on the Strength card represents the harmony of opposites. There are many different interpretations of this particular polarity. Man taming nature, man taming the ego, man overcoming beast, overcoming carnal desires, the higher self balancing with one's lower nature, gaining enlightenment through strength, initiation into higher states and understanding, inner strength versus outer strength, and setting boundaries. Historically, it is said artists used the young woman lion symbolism to convey themes of man overcoming and taming nature. In tarot, the Strength card is the 8th numbered card in the Fool's Journey, the Fool being 0, and it is associated with the zodiac sign of Leo. It is seen as a card of strength, courage, love over hate, and spiritual over material. This year, you may have found yourself relying heavily on the inner strength cultivated up until this time period. There is this pervading energy of the unpredictable, the unplanned, the unexpected, as well as a resistance to the tried and true methods we've become accustomed to solving problems with. We must grapple with the rebalancing of the scales and the long-term consequences of our choices. For me, I felt an energetic point of demarcation when it comes to this energy in June. The beginning of this year felt as though it was heavily tied to various situations and commitments from 2023 and beyond, but with an unstable quality. Many things were thrown off, retired, and or renewed. Different aspects of what seemed familiar were revealed to us as strange. After we charged forth in our chariot, committed to our decisions and obligations, galloping into strength energy has been a test of our major life choices and resolve. If you were holding on to anything in life that wasn't working, this is the year that it is utterly falling apart. And if you happen to be in alignment, someone who listens to your intuition, cuts ties with all that block you in your highest good, and you are the type of person that leaps forth into the unknown with trust and faith, your commitment is being tested, but at the same time, you are gaining more inner strength and personal power. Now, as I've mentioned before, this year seems to have two major parts to it. One specific energy in the first half and another energy for the second half. Kind of like how the infinity symbol or the number 8 turned sideways has two parts to it. The second half of this year represents the real change needed to get back on track. So the first half was the falling away or stripping away of all that is not working. And the second half is the change needed to return to oneself. And this is important. It is critical that we do not resist the needed changes, because the shadow side to the strength energy is the star. Now, under normal circumstances, the star card, number 17 of the major arcana, represented by, a naked woman kneeling down over a pond, pouring water from 2 vessels in each hand with a starry sky in the background. Normally, this is a positive card. However, the shadow side of this energy includes vulnerability, naivete, isolation, distrust, delusion, being put in the hot seat or put on the spot, and lacking a return on your investments. So it's important to embrace the energy of the strength card and allow your higher self to harmonize and balance out with your lower self. Letting this change occur will build up the inner strength needed to get through the end of the year that already sort of has an anything can happen type of energy. And it will prepare you for the year to come. 2025 represented by the Hermit card. And I'm not going to go too much into it right now, but the Hermit card is all about introspection and soul searching. It's the 9th card of the major arcana, represented by a hooded old man holding a lamp in the darkness. 2025 will be a year of looking within and being guided by spirit. We will likely all be in a place in our lives where we will need to use the hermit's lamp to light our way through the darkness. And just so you know, it is the strength you already have and are gaining more of through your own spiritual evolution that is the power, the light, or the spark keeping the hermit's lamp lit in the blackness. Despite how strong you are or think you are, and how much you've endured or have been tested so far this year, we never truly can discover how strong we are until we reach our darkest hours. So make sure to keep working on cultivating your own personal power and strength through evolution and change this year so that you are more than prepared for the year to come. Now it's time for a deck review. I've decided to stick with the theme of change and transformation by reviewing one of my favorite decks, the Tarot of the 78 Doors. The theme involves doors, doorways, portals, gateways, and one could also say the liminal spaces between worlds. 78 is in the title due to there being 78 cards, also the number of cards in a typical tarot deck. The door theme in this case really works because when there's a lot of change and transformation occurring in one's life, be it good or bad, some doors open and some close. Either way, there is movement on our path wherever it may lead. The Tarot of 78 Doors was originally published in November of 2005 by Italian publisher Lo Scarabeo. Llewellyn and Lo Scarabeo appear to have some sort of partnership, so the deck is now sold through Llewellyn, it seems. My deck came in a tuck box, has a gloss finish, and is made of pretty thin cardboard, but it's held up well since I've had it. It's been about a few months now. All the writing on the box is in Italian, and there is no guidebook included. The bottom of the box has a QR code that you can scan to access the booklet online, and the link associated with the QR code leads to a Google Docs folder that has like 1 million different PDF guidebooks for various decks published by Lo Scarabeo. For whatever reason, I was not able to completely load all of the files in the booklets folder, so I never saw the guidebook for Tarot of the 78 Doors. These cards have rounded corners, a semi-glossy finish, and no gilded edges. They measure 4 by about 2.5 inches, which is a little bit smaller than standard tarot card size. Those who know me know I prefer small cards because I have small hands and they're easier for me to shuffle. One complaint I have about this deck is that the cardstock is quite thin. Shuffling is not a huge problem right now, but the cards have begun to stick together while using the riffle shuffle method. As the cards become more flexible with time, this will probably be a bigger problem. In general, I've used them a lot so far and they've held up pretty well. Regarding the artwork and written content of the deck, the Tarot of the 78 Doors was illustrated by Antonella Platano and authored by Pietro Aligo. There is a thin white border around the artwork of each card, and the names of the cards are printed in 6 different languages, with English at the top left corner. The major arcana cards are numbered with Roman numerals. The art style of this deck is pretty traditional. The illustrations are relatively detailed and a variety of colors are used, though they are somewhat muted. The backs of the cards are reversible, showing a mirrored image of a large golden key floating in the middle of an open golden gate in front of a blue background. The suits for this deck are pretty standard. We have swords, wands, chalices, and pentacles. The court cards include knaves, knights, queens, and kings. When it comes to the major arcana, in the tradition of Italian tarot decks from which modern tarot as we know it was birthed, the Strength card is number 11 and the Justice card is number 8. The creators of the popular Rider-Waite-Smith deck, originally published in 1909, chose to switch the order of Strength and Justice so that they corresponded to Leo and Libra. So for this deck, Strength is 11 and Justice is 8. I would say the full card is the most traditional card in the deck when it comes to modern tarot decks inspired by RWS, Rider-Waite-Smith. Instead of the fool holding a flower, he is holding a key. My 2 favorite cards in the major arcana are the Wheel and the Hanged Man. In this deck, the Wheel depicts what looks like a seance. There are people sitting around the table with their hands out in a circle, as if creating a doorway to another world. Imagine that. The Hanged Man card shows a magician or escape artist on a stage hung upside down and handcuffed while an audience looks on. This card made me kind of wonder, how exactly is that a gateway? But after thinking about it, the Hanged Man is a card about seeing things from another perspective, an idea inspired by when shamans used to hang by their heels in order to achieve some form of enlightenment. And when you're underwater, it's almost like being in another world, especially in contrast to the audience that is observing. I guess the doorway or threshold would be where water meets air, or the surface of the water. Another interesting card in this deck is the Devil, which depicts a naked man and woman standing inside of a pentagram, engaged in some sort of ritual that involves summoning a demonic spirit. In this card, it's pretty clear as to what type of gateway they're opening. There are also plenty of cards with actual doors, but in my opinion, some of the most thought-provoking cards use symbolism instead. Out of the minors, I really like the Knight of Chalices, which depicts a knight on horseback in front of a secret passage hidden behind a waterfall. Then there's the Five of Wands, which shows a man about to swing a mallet at a bricked-up doorway. The Two of Swords shows a nun surprised by a baby in a basket left at the doorstep. And the Ten of Swords shows a man getting acupuncture needles put into his back. There is one super creepy card, and that's the Queen of Swords, which shows a woman in some sort of trance with a ghostly spirit emerging from her mouth. Creepy looking card, but I get it. So, almost every card in this deck has a unique picture to represent the idea behind each card. And because of the theme, some additional ideas and concepts are added as well. Regarding the suits, you're not going to see 4 wands in the 4 of wands or 8 swords in the 8 of swords. It's really about the idea behind the card and your interpretation of it inspired by intuition. For me, it's a very comforting deck to have around when so much in my life and around me is changing. So now I'm going to do a quick reading with this deck. The reading will be based on the question, what can myself and everyone listening to this podcast expect to come into their lives for the rest of the year? So yeah, I have to reiterate how frustrating it is, or it has become, to shuffle with these cards because they get bent out of shape really easily, and I'm finding I have to kind of constantly readjust how I shuffle and the strength in which I shuffle, and then bend the cards back and forth so that they behave properly, which is getting a little annoying. However, I really do like the concept and the artwork in this deck. Okay, so after asking the question, what can myself and anyone listening to this podcast expect for the rest of the year, I got the Tower card. So, and in this deck, the Tower card is basically, it's a tower built on the edge of a cliff, and the top of it's on fire, and there are a bunch of people running out of it. There's all types of lightning coming from the clouds and very strong waves hitting the cliff. So it's a very dramatic type of card. So basically, it shows some people, the tower's on fire and they're running out of the doorway and, getting to safety. That's the card we have. So I'm going to assume that there's some things happening in our lives that are out of our control, and they're forcing us to move on and move into another space. I will say this though, I did notice that, when you are making an effort to really listen to your intuition, and you kind of get to a place where you see things coming. And even if it is, there's tower energy in your life, it may not feel so dramatic because you're sort of accepting the changes that are coming. I think the trauma and drama with this card can really come from when you're resisting change and you're going to need to be forced, right? Because before there's a fire, there's always smoke. Things don't have to be the way of the super dramatic way that the card is depicting, you know, running out of a tower that's on fire. It doesn't have to be that way. If you just kind of pay attention to the signs that it's time to move on, and move forward. So maybe some of you can relate to this, but I'm going to say that there's going to be quite a bit of change happening for us all if it hasn't already occurred. I know some things have changed for me already. So, or there might be some changes to come as well. Towers also can mean a breakthrough. So if you've been feeling like there's been a long period of stagnation in your life and everything's just kind of the same, a tower can be somewhat positive because it's a breakthrough, and some things are being forced to break through and forced to happen, which for some can feel very positive. So we have the tower, and I tend to always look at the bottom of the deck just to see what the underlying energy is. And we have the Two of Wands card. And I really like this card because in this deck, it's depicted as it's a woman in some sort of costume, and maybe she's some sort of entertainment for some royal court or something like that. She looks like she's a dancer or something. And she is peering through a door. So it's like, you know, when you watch those like old school ghost movies or something from like the 80s or 90s, and they would depict like ghosts walking through walls and things like that. It's like she, like half of her body is outside of this door that's closed, and I'm assuming that is locked, and then half of it is, you know, back behind the door. Then you don't really see it. So there's this energy of just like moving between worlds, and she looks as though she's very cautious as she tries to move into this other world. So I get there's this energy of, you know, the unknown, and having to sort of move into another place, not being really sure what's going to happen. But I'm also, from this tower, I'm getting whatever it is. There's really no choice, right? So whatever abilities you have to move in between worlds, you're going to have to use it for the rest of the year. But I feel like whatever it is, it's necessary for the energy to come, because, you know, next year will be the year of it'll be the year of the Hermit. And that's all about, like I said, it's all about soul searching. So if you find yourself in a dark place, you really want to have some light from your lamp to show you the way, because the shadow side of the Hermit card is the moon. And that's all about, you know, things being hidden, obfuscated, being somewhat in the dark about things. So make sure to really have the strength and the power, the personal power, evolve in a way where you can be guided and you can see what your next move is. You can see what your next step is, because maybe we're moving through a time when everything won't be so obvious, right? All right, so that's the reading. Now I'm going to rate this deck. We're using a 5-star system, but instead of stars, we use star cards. So my rating for Los Scarabaeos Tarot of the 78 Doors is 1, 2, 3, 4 star cards. I really like this deck, but I had to take a star off due to the super thin cardstock, the flimsy tuck box, and the never-ending Google Drive PDF folder where all the unprinted tarot booklets live. I don't mind the idea of saving paper and costs by not including a physical booklet. I would just appreciate being directly led to the text instead of having to search for it. Other than that, it's a great deck. I've never heard anyone talking about it, probably because it's so old, but overall I find it to be very insightful and thought-provoking. And most importantly, I'm connecting with it. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening to Tarotmance. For more information on anything I've discussed today, please visit tarotmance.com for show notes. And before I go, I'd like to remind you all that I'm a graphic artist taking commissions for personalized, intuitive artwork inspired by the tarot. So, if you'd be interested in custom artwork, please visit tarotmance.com, or you can email tarotmance@gmail.com to send any questions or comments. Also, please feel free to check out some of my work at arviaglass.com, and you can email me directly at contact@arviaglass.com. Please make sure to subscribe and or follow and rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Until next time, goodbye, Taromancers.